Welcome to the Speak and Get What You Want podcast, where you learn to communicate like the world's most successful leaders. Now, here are your hosts, Stratton and Chad Kerby. Welcome to the Speak and Get What You Want podcast. TK, great to be with you today.
Hey, you too.
Today we're going to be talking about a subject that is critically important for everyone to really understand as they talk about how they communicate and how they successfully communicate, because successfully communicating comes down to, as we've talked about before, your mindset and how you approach different opportunities and even challenges. And sometimes we feel like when we're facing opposition or we have problems, we might be thinking to ourselves, oh, I must be doing the wrong thing, or we might be frustrated with ourselves because we feel like the problems just keep piling up. But today, as TK and I, we're going to talk for a moment about how we approach problems and how we communicate through those problems so that we can really get what we want and achieve the success we're hoping for. And TK, you were sharing with me a quote from one of your mentors, Dan Pena, specifically about this very topic.
Yeah, no, it's so true, but he was talking to me about, when you're growing in business, particularly he calls it quantum growth is when you're, really in acquisition mode is what he calls it. But he says during quantum growth in business, he said any problem you solve will be replaced immediately by a larger, more complicated problem. And I think that's very true. When you're not growing, you're just kind of dealing with the same day-to-day problems, and bigger and smaller ones come about as they go. But the big, more complicated problems that you're not used to come when you're growing like you're not used to. And that's what
and I'm sure, TK, I'm sure Dan was trying to encourage you, but how did you react when you hear that for the first time? Hey, TK, don't worry about these problems because you're gonna just get bigger ones down the road.
If anything, it was comforting because I was already dealing with a lot of problems, and that's kind of what you deal with in business is you deal with a lot of problems. I heard a quote today by a guy, Graham Carling. He's another one that we've met through Dan Pena, but he said, I work 80 hours a week in my own business, so I don't have to work a 40-hour week. And I think that's so true, and that a lot of that time is solving problems because you're dealing with bigger and bigger problems. But that's what you love. And that's why you work 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work a 40-hour week job. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, I think that's awesome. And understanding, so someone thinking to themselves and listening is saying, wait a second, I keep having all these problems. And TK, they think to themselves sometimes, I must be doing something wrong. Why is it that I'm faced with so much opposition? But as you're telling us from what Dan and you're sharing is that you may be on the very right track to where you need to be, but the problems and opposition that you're facing is just part of the growth that you have to experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and TK, we were talking just not long ago about a problem that you had was it after you sold your restoration company and you were transitioning into real estate?
Yeah, and we've always done real estate for a while, but we really wanted to do that in kind of a quantum growth mode, you know. And then this just goes to why we all deal with lots of problems, and especially as you're getting going. And keys to this, or one is, being able to put a team together that can help you start out and get through those problems. You need support, and I've really found you can't do it alone. I thought I could at times, and I've come to those realizations that if you're really wanting to grow and you're wanting to go to those next steps, you have to have people to support you and people to help you, and a mentor or mentors to help you. But when we first got going
Well, TK, I'm going to stop you real quick before you get into this. That's huge. Everyone needs to really internalize what you just said there. Quit trying to do it all alone. Quit trying to experience success by yourself. So many people think they have to do it alone, TK, and you're saying no. Don't overcome that temptation to say, oh, I can do this on my own. I can bootstrap and do it all on my own. But building yourself with with a team and mentors is huge. So continue on with what you were going to say.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk more about that, but really having people who can support you. And that's the only way to even really get started. Well, as I got started, I went and tried to assemble the best team I could. I went to the top guys at some of the brokerages to help me. I went to some of the top developers to really find, for real estate, for guys to be on my team and work on these deals that I was trying to go after. Well, I remember one that we were going after. This was several years ago, but anyways, we had made an offer, and when you start out in real estate, it's really difficult. It doesn't matter if you have money, if you've raised capital, if you have banking, any of those things, to convince a seller of a property that you're the qualified buyer and that you're actually going to close. Because if you look at it from a seller's point of view, and these are big properties, we're talking 20, 30, 40, 50 plus $1 million properties. And when you're trying to convince a seller, and when your group is, even though they're experienced, they're a new group, that you're the qualified people to buy that property, it's really difficult to make that believable because that seller has, 20 other groups in front of you or behind you, whatever, that he can go to, that many of which have done multiple deals, are very qualified and have a track record of closing on deals. Because if the seller chooses you, now all of those buyers are gone and they're relying on you to go through due diligence over a 3 or 4 month period to get your bank to actually lend you the money and know that you're going to come in with the equity. And if you don't have a track record, the bank isn't going to lend you the money. And your bank can back out last minute as you start going through the deal process and the due diligence, and you can tie this property up with a seller, and then all of a sudden your bank back out, and then the seller goes, crap, now I got to go back out to market. I just lost 3 or 4 months of my life plus 20 other buyers that I could have gone with, and embarrass myself to go beg them to come back to buy my property. It can create a big issue. So I say that because it's starting off in what I do or in real estate, and this can be in anything. So anyone knows this, in any business, it's
Right.
really hard to start out. And so without having a team, well, we went after this one property, and it was for a big group out of New York, owned it, $50 billion fund. And we had to convince them that we were the group to buy it. Well, as we went through the process, we actually got chosen to buy it because of the team I had in place. Thank goodness. Well, as we went through, things with the market started changing. Our due diligence found some things, and this was a deal we really, really wanted. We had been hunting for deals for months after months and with no success. And I really didn't want to lose this deal. Well, our bank decided to fall out because of the market conditions and things that were happening. So I had to call that fund and say, "Hey guys, it's not looking we can do the deal on that level." And they got really mad as a seller, obviously, for all the reasons I just said.
Right. Right.
And we had to bow out of the deal. And I just remembered all the training that we had gotten. I tried to stay positive. I just kept it upbeat. Guys, we still want to be here. If things change, and we still feel like we're the right people for this, and timing has changed. Well, we followed up with this deal for about 2.5 years, that we just kept calling, maybe every month or every couple months, and just tried to see where they were at and kind of chase it. And at the time, the market just kept falling and kept getting worse. They weren't ready to sell it. 2.5 years later, they finally said, "Okay, we'll go ahead and sell it to you." And I was so heartbroken. I remember when we lost the deal at the time, 2.5 years previous to this. It's going through those times that are hard, that make you second guess, at least it did me, second guess what I'm doing, how much harder this was going to be than I thought. All this wasted time, this team I had built up, and making them mad and feeling like I'm wasting their time and I'm not profitable for them. All those things go through your head, and those happen. Well, the great thing that happened out of it, the positive thing, is we ended up 2.5 years later getting the property for less than half of what we were going to pay for
Wow.
it 2.5 years previous. And, again, a big deal. So It just worked out. Our team was very happy with it, and the deal became very profitable for all, the entire team. And it was good that everyone hung in there, and we just kept going. And I just, through that and through those years, we just had other deals that just kept going, and you know, those times still come about. It's daily, it's weekly. That you're going through that, and you have your wins and you have a lot of losses. We have a lot more losses and deals that we don't do or don't get than the deals that we do get. And so it's just a numbers game. I think it's like sales. I've got a daughter out doing pest control sales right now, door to door, and she's knocking on anywhere from 60 to 90 doors a day, talking to people. And a good salesperson is hopefully doing 1 to 4 sales a day out of all those people you talk to. So it's when you really look at the numbers and you just keep your head positive, the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. And my one of my mentors, Dan Pena, who you said, he just said, we talk about our doubts. I think a huge mistake that we all make is we share those doubts with everyone, our team,
Mhm.
everyone else. He actually says the opposite. He said, never share your doubts with anyone but your mentor. And so if you don't have a mentor, you need one. And
Mm.
that mentor should be where you want to be, someone who is in the seat that you're wanting to sit in, who lives in the house that you want to live in, who has the income that you are wanting to have, who has the cars that you want to have, all those types of things. Um, those are the guys you listen to, and that can become your guy or girl or gal.
Right.
I know the guy that I had chosen for my mentor. He lived way up in North Scottsdale, literally at the top of the mountain. He's on, I don't know, 10 acres or something. Nice, beautiful, beautiful home. Very successful developer that's all over the United States. And it's funny that, so many people are so scared to go knock on guys like that door to ask them for help. And that's what I did. I was able to get a hold of him and literally just built him up on how impressed I was with him and how much I wanted to be like him. And I asked him if he would help me and be my mentor. It was really that easy. And that's all he loves it. That's what he wants to do. And
Well,
so
and it's crazy,
I did
TK.
that.
And you and I have talked about this before, but it's crazy how often people like that are willing to help, but people really aren't willing to go find a mentor. They talk about it, they think about it, but they're afraid to go up and just knock on that door, proverbially, and just say, "Hey, you know what? Let's connect." And
Yeah.
and they're willing to do it.
Yeah. A lot of them are. And especially if you can put it in a situation where they can get paid, on the success that you are able to accomplish with the deals that you bring because of their mentorship. And people are afraid to give up part of whatever they have, but it's way better to give a small piece of a way larger pie
Mm.
than try and hang on to 100% of a little teeny pie, in my opinion, of
Oh,
whatever you get on your own.
yeah, no question, no question. But TK, there are 5 specific things that you brought up with that story that I want to just really highlight as we talk about not just acknowledging that you have problems, but really embracing the fact that problems will be there, and as you solve them, your ability to solve them increases, and you just become more and more successful. And it's like that flywheel that so many people reference. Is you're moving that flywheel and working hard, the problems still come, but your ability to solve them increases, and you continue to succeed. But the very first thing you said when you were facing that problem of not getting the funding as you had hoped, you said you communicated with the seller,
Yep.
and how you communicated with them. Number one, you communicated with them, but then number two, you tried to communicate with a positive, optimistic tone. but
Yep.
but TK, the situation wasn't good. So how were you able to remain positive even though you were embarrassed? You felt like you had failed. How did you communicate positively even though you were, getting kicked in the stomach?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was definitely a kick in the stomach, and even at that, I didn't want to walk away from the deal. I wanted to
Mm,
keep shopping. This is where it just goes back to having good people on your team, because my mentor and the other people on my team said, TK, we you're not buying this deal. Do not buy this deal. And so when you listen to your team and your mentor on what to do, then that helps, because then at least that as hard as it is, and as much as I didn't want to let it go, that was the right decision. However, if you place yourself in the position of the people who are trying to sell it, the big group, and these are big New York guys, I mean, they were mad. I mean, they said words like I can't repeat on this. They were really mad, and understandably, and so I just tried to maintain positive, putting myself in their shoes, because yeah, I have my problems. This is a big problem for them, and they wanted this problem off their desk.
right.
But I wanted to be there for them, um, as I knew that this could potentially open up another opportunity down the future, is how I felt, and I never wanted to lose that opportunity. And I wanted to do all I could to maintain a relationship so that I would potentially have the opportunity, which we did. Thank goodness, just from staying positive, guys. I want this off your plate, and I know this is a big problem for you. And I think it goes back to trying to make things about the other person rather than just about you, and that's hard to do, especially when this is about you. You feel
Right.
like, but it's
Right.
about them too. So I you it if you let yourself, you can feel like a failure and feel like, man, I needed this deal, I needed to make it happen. We didn't have any other deals going, and we were struggling finding deals, and that's just business, that's just how it goes. um, and so I think, just if you can maintain that and maintain it about the other person and what they're going through and what they're really wanting, so that it's not all about you, I think it makes it better.
Oh, no question. And so you're communicating. Number one, you were communicating. Number two, it was with optimism, making it all about them. And I love that. But number three, TK, you said you were persistent and you stayed in front of them. And you wanted it even though it wasn't the right timing and so forth. But did that persistence come from guidance you were receiving from your mentor, or was that just within yourself?
Probably just us, not necessarily I think a lot of my mentor on our team just said, "There's plenty of deals. Let it go. Keep going." And we kept going at it. And as we started getting closer, of course, my mentor was like, wow, okay, let's see if we can get this, make a run at it, at the right position. Again,
Right.
we get, when you're getting it for less than half of what you originally offered, then a deal is a deal. That's the way these guys think, and not getting emotionally attached. That's probably the biggest
Mm.
lesson here is, Warren Buffett talks a lot about that. When you let your emotions get to you, that's when you say things that you really shouldn't have ever said. And that's things that you can't ever take back. And
Right.
so when your emotions get a hold of you, it's really hard to think logically and clearly and say the right things. And if that's how you're feeling, it's better to not say anything, or don't be there if you're not going to be able to control your emotions. Wait till you're in a position where you can, and just stay calm and make it about them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I want to talk more about that in just a second, but I want to hit on number 4 and number 5. Number 4, TK, you mentioned that it's hard and that you just accepted that it's hard. You and I were chatting last week and we were just talking about the different challenges in business, and we were trying to pinpoint, sales is hard, or construction is hard, or plumbing, or buying this business, whatever's hard. And you were like, Chad, anything worthwhile, it's hard. Everything's hard and challenging. And so
Yeah.
just acknowledging that, number 4, just acknowledging it like, whoa, this is hard. But guess what? It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be hard. That's part of being successful in business is, accepting that there's going to be some opposition.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who he was that told me this, but one of my a good friend of mine, he was stating, TK, there's a lot of sides of ridiculous. He said there's it's ridiculous. I have to deal with this problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. We don't have sales coming in. It's ridiculous uh, that I'm in this position, whatever it is, or that I'm having to deal with this. And then there's the other side of ridiculous. There's some condos in Miami that they built in this tower that the starting price is $8 million. There's condos in this deal that are $40 million. There's another tower I toured over in London that on the upper floors above the hotel rooms they start at $75 million. There's people that paid the money to buy these suites and these condos before they were built. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. So there you driving a nice car, whatever it is that's your dream, a Ferrari, McLaren or a Rolls Royce, whatever. That's ridiculous. For a lot of people living at the top of the mountain like my guy does in that beautiful home over in North
Right.
Scottsdale. It's
Right.
ridiculous. It's
Well,
ridiculous. So like what side of ridiculous do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the struggling? It's ridiculous. I'm having to struggle with this. Or do you want to be on the other side? And I think that just kind of comes with a mindset.
mhm.
What side of ridiculous do you want to be on?
I love that. That is great. That is great. And then TK, the last thing, number 5, that I really want to touch on is the thing that you had mentioned earlier is just don't share your doubts. Don't share your doubts. Don't share because that negative energy that accompanies your doubts can really be something that you can live into.
Yeah,
And I think that's really important. But overarching all of these things, and this is what I want to emphasize as we wrap up, TK, overarching it is what you had mentioned moments ago with emotion. Don't let your emotion get in the way of your problems. And TK, most of the time, problems trigger people's emotions and it causes
absolutely.
them to maybe think
Absolutely.
differently, respond differently.
Absolutely.
I
That's when
cut
we
you
make
off. Go
bad.
ahead. What were you saying?
No, no, absolutely. I was just saying absolutely. That's when I've made bad calls, when I let my emotions get in the way. So it's really
Right.
important that we don't let our emotions get ahead of us because that's when we do things that we didn't want to do, or we make bad calls, or we act too soon and we're not patient because of emotion. So trying to keep your emotions out of it.
Absolutely. And don't let your emotions don't let the problems that you're facing, the challenges you're facing, the difficulties that you're facing cause you to put you in an emotional state that just doesn't let you act rationally. Understand this that problems are going to be there in business. If you have problems, that means you're in business. If you're in leadership and you have problems, that means you're a leader. All of the above. But just remember that TK's your story was awesome. At the moment, at the time, you were embarrassed. It was difficult. You didn't know what to do, and yet you faced the problem. You gave us those 5 key steps, and it ended up turning out great. And that's how often many of our problems do. They actually turn out as tremendous blessings, even though at the time they may seem like an enormous challenge.
Absolutely.
Well, TK, thank you for your insights. Thank you for everything you shared. Always great to be with you. Love your stories and examples that help all of us know what we can do to speak and get what we want. Thanks, TK. Have an awesome night.
You too. Have a good night, guys.
Take care. Bye now.